All right, so last time we were working on building out the views for managing our templates, and this time I wanted to start connecting and integrating with the YouTube API. So we want to do a couple things with the YouTube API. We want to list the videos that we have for our channel. We also want to update some videos on our channel. And in my experience, setting up OAuth with Google can be a bit tricky. So following their code snippets and code samples, generally when I'm implementing OAuth with Rails, I like to use the OmniAuth gem. And there is an OmniAuth provider strategy for Google Oauth2. However, I wasn't able to get it to work given the credentials that we have. So I wanted to just walk through the whole process. So here, if you look at the update or list endpoints, then when you get to the authorization section, it tells you to read more about authorization, and we land over here implementing Oauth2 authorization. And there's a couple different auth flows that you can go through. And the first thing that you need to do is go over to the Google API console. From the Google API console, you have to create a new project. So we're going to create a project here, and we're going to call it like a video automation. I'm not going to select an organization. I'm just going to click create, and that is going to create a brand new project called video automation. It takes a little bit. It's not too bad, but it does take a couple minutes or seconds to fire that up. And once we have a project created, so we have this video automation project, the next thing we want to do is enable certain APIs. In this case, we can just search for YouTube, and we want to enable the YouTube Data v3 API. There's also a reporting API and an analytics API. If you want to pull like traffic stats, like how many views you're getting or things like that, you want to use the analytics or reporting APIs. For pulling information about videos or updating videos, we want the YouTube Data API. And right now it's version 3. So we're going to use that. Okay, so we've enabled that API for this project. Now the next thing that we need to do is create some credentials. We're going to tell it that we're creating credentials for the YouTube v3 API. We're going to be calling it from the web server. We are going to be accessing user data because we want to, pull in private videos and videos that are scheduled but not live. So we can say, what credentials do we need? In order to set up the OAuth flow, we need a consent screen. And the consent screen is where we can specify like what the user sees when they're agreeing to authorize access to their YouTube account. And we're going to pick video automation, the video automation project. And we can say that any test user with a Google account is going to be able to use this. Our app name is Video Automations. Support is my email address. There's no app logo, and then we'll just say the developer contact is my email address again. Okay, we want to add scopes. The scope that we want in this case is YouTube.force.ssl so that we can edit YouTube videos. Okay, so we're going to check that box and update. The next thing we're going to do is save and continue. Okay, and we want to add a test user. I'm just going to add myself. Click add. Okay, and then I see myself down here, and then we're going to say save and continue. So we should have a test user, and we have YouTube. We have the scope set up, and we've got like several things ready to go. So let's go back to the dashboard. And back to credentials. So now that our consent screen is set up, we want to set up an Oauth2 client. So that was happening in another tab here. Okay, so now that we have our consent screen set up, we should be able to go through this process. Now the authorized redirect URIs, this is the URLs that we want to authorize Google to send people to after they agree to use our service. So in this case, when we're in development, I'm going to pass the URI to the local redirect callback. So we're going to need to create this on our server. It's going to live at localhost 3000/auth/YouTube, or let's make it YouTube sessions/callback. and then we'll say refresh. And okay, so now we can create an OAuth client ID. So we're super close. Okay, so we're going to create an OAuth client ID. So this is going to be useful. We want to copy this, but also there's going to be some client secret information that's going to be in this JSON file format when you download it. Often, a lot of the examples that Google has written expect that you have this JSON file downloaded. I am not going to download the file. I'm going to say I'll do this later. And then when you click on the web client, this is the client that we just created, this Oauth2 Client. When you click on it, you can see your credentials here. I'm going to blur this out, but your client ID is at the top, and then your client secret is underneath that. So this is exactly what we need to set up the OAuth flow in Rails. So let's go do that now. So in Rails, I'm going to say Rails G controller YouTube sessions. This is going to be a controller that is purely for connecting to our YouTube channel. Okay, so we're going to go to routes. And in here, we'll add resources. No, let's just say get to auth/YouTube should go to the YouTube sessions new view, and then we'll add another one that is like YouTube sessions /callback. If we receive a GET request for YouTube sessions, actually, let's make this first one. I think my browser just restarted. That's okay. So if we receive a GET request to /YouTube sessions, we'll go to the new route. And then if we receive a GET request for YouTube sessions /callback, we'll go to the callback route. So these are going to be the two things that we need to connect to a YouTube channel, or authenticate to a YouTube channel. All right, so let's go to our YouTube sessions controller. And we need a new action, and we need a create action, or a callback action. So the new action, this is going to be the route that we're going to browse to. We'll probably put a link to this somewhere on the page. And when you first make a GET request to this route, it should redirect you to the Google OAuth flow. So if you dig into their samples here, or let's see, guides, and then under guides, they have server-side web apps. And under server-side web apps, they have examples in Ruby, which you can follow. That's not what I wanted. Okay, so first we need to install the Google API Client gem. Let's go to gem file, gem Google API Client, bundle install. This sample shows Sinatra. We're not going to use Sinatra. So we're going to come down here and look at this example. So here it says use the secrets.json file you created earlier. It's super hard to read, sorry. But we're not actually going to use that file. Instead, we're going to use the Rails credentials. So this method, Google API client secrets.load, is expecting that JSON file to exist. But there's another there's another way to initialize an instance of this, and that's just newing it up, calling .new, and passing in the data that you otherwise would have inside of this client secrets.json file. So we're going to use Rails's encrypted secrets to store our client ID and our client secret, and then we'll generate the JSON that would have otherwise been provided to us in that download, and then we'll plop it into this initializer call. And just to take a look at the actual full example of what they show. So this OAuth callback route is actually doing two things. The first one is setting up this client secrets object and then generating an auth client from it. And if we're coming, if it's the new route, this is kind of like the new route, then we're going to redirect. If it's coming back after the authentication, then this is what's going to happen. We're going to get back a code query string parameter, and we're going to set that on the auth client. So this is what we're going to go through next, is setting this bit up. So I'm just going to copy that. Prettier, I set up prettier, and it's killing me. Auth Client. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I'm going to break this up so that like these two pieces go in here, and then these pieces all go into the callback, and then we'll talk about each of these lines as we go. But what I wanted to do was just like abstract away a little bit of what's happening so that we can more easily see this. So our redirect URI is right now, it's currently, let's see, localhost 3000 / YouTube session / callback, right? And we can double check that from the console here. Yep, so YouTube session / callback. So this is our redirect URI. We want that to match this, okay? The next thing we want to do is set our auth client so that it's passing the correct scope, but it's also passing our redirect URI. Now there's another set of 2 optional arguments that we want, because we're going to be maybe running processes in the background to refetch, YouTube videos as they happen, and then re-update them, and maybe lots of stuff that's happening in the background or like overnight. We want to be able to run this offline, or when the customer is like not on session, or when the user is not on session. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to pass in this property called additional parameters. So additional parameters, and here we're going to say access type is offline, and then we're also going to pass include granted scopes so that we can do incremental auth. Now, if I just return auth client here and then start using it up here as a bare word, right? When we redirect, this should work fine, because we can actually just make this Railsy, and that actually works. Redirect to, this is a little bit more common, and then since we're just calling this, we can use that instead. So our redirect will work fine. However, our callback method, if we look closely at it and what it's doing, the way that we've implemented the auth client right now won't work. So first we say call the auth client method and get what the return value is. So it runs all this stuff and says like load up the client secrets and generate an authorization and then update it and then return an auth client. And then for that auth client that was returned, set its code. But on the next line, we say auth client.fetch access token. And when we use auth client here a second time in the callback function, that is going to execute this auth client method again. And so we're going to be like the second line here in the callback method is going to get a second instance of auth client. So what we want to do instead is memoize the return value of this entire method. And we could do that a couple different ways. There's like, gems and stuff for memoizing, but what you can also do is just create an instance variable called auth client and then say it or equals begin, and then just pass it a whole block here. And some formatters like having the end at the very end. I don't. But okay, so what this will do now is say each time we reference auth client in a single request, we're going to be using the same instance of an auth client. So before we go too far, this request thing, this is from Sinatra. In Rails, it's params. We're going to say params code. That'll pull out the authorization code in the second step of the Oauth2 flow, or the third step. And then we'll call fetch access token. This is where we exchange that auth code for an access token on the server with our secret keys and such. And that will allow us to create an instance or store the access token that'll allow us to interact with the API on behalf of the channel. And then it's nailing out the client secret so we don't accidentally keep passing around the client secrets. And then storing the auth client, the entire auth client, in the session credentials. Rather than doing this, I think we actually want to store this, store the auth client creds in the DB, and then redirect. Sure, redirect to. Okay. So in order to store it in the DB, we need a model for this. So let's create a new Rails model called, let's call it a YouTube session. Rails G model YouTube session, and it'll have, let's give it a session ID or a session token maybe, and then this will be something that we automatically generate, and we use that to authenticate with whomever is logged in. And then let's also give it just like a credentials JSON blob. Okay. All right. Duplicate key in dictionary Ruby. Oh, my vimrc. Okay. Let's see. What is it? Okay. So I try to disable this fixer, and this prettier is just like taken over. All right. Let's see. Create YouTube sessions. Let's take a look at what happened. All right. So we got a JSON blob for credentials, and we have our session token, null, false. And then we'll index on that session token. Okay, sure. Rake db migrate. This will create our new YouTube sessions model. Or I'm sorry, a table in the database that is related to the new YouTube sessions model. Now we can go back to our YouTube sessions controller, and here we want to say YouTube. Let's see, YouTube session dot create. And we'll pass in the credentials is Auth client.to JSON, or maybe just Auth client. I don't know if we need to explicitly serialize it to JSON or if that'll happen for us by default. Okay, so one other thing that we need to change here is this call to client-secrets.load, because recall that like we're not actually going to use that client-secrets.json file they gave us. Instead, we're going to call new and pass in a big object which represents, or like that looks exactly like that client-secrets.json file. So, all right. I'm copying something that looks just like it and pasting it in here. Okay, so the project ID is, what is our project ID? Dashboard. Okay, so this is our project ID. Okay, this is the auth token URI, All this stuff is included in that JSON blob that that gets spit out. And then the redirect URI is just going to be redirect URI. And then we're going to pull this client ID out of the Rails application credentials. That's encrypted, and then this client secret is encrypted in the application credentials. So let's go look at how to set up some credentials with Rails. So you say you specify the editor command or the editor that you want to use explicitly as like an environment variable, and then you can run Rails credentials :edit to open up the credentials editor. And we're going to say YouTube and then client ID and client secret here. And the client ID and client secret are available in that developer console where we were here. So this is the client secret. And this is the client ID. We'll copy those two. All right. And then once we close this file, it gets encrypted as config/credentials.yaml.enc. So if we cat that file, it's just an encrypted file, and it's encrypted with your config/master.key. I'm not going to show you that. But yeah, keep that in mind, because when you deploy to production, your master key should never be committed to Git, but instead you'll pass that, or you'll set it as an environment variable when you deploy. Okay, so by virtue of having that YAML file that has YouTube and underneath it client ID and client secret, we're able to access those credentials directly with Rails using rails.application.credentials. And then .dig is just a way to like reach into a hash with several keys in a row. But this should give us back our client ID and our client secret and plop them in the right spots. And yeah, so I mean, technically you could put your project ID there too, but it doesn't, whatever, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so let's we've gone like super far ways here. Let's take a swag and see if we can get this thing to fire up and actually work. So we'll start the Rails server. Oh, you know what? There's one other thing we need to do. So for some reason, the Google gem doesn't actually require these libraries for you. So we need to require them explicitly at the top. So we need the YouTube API and we need this client secrets thing. Do we even need the YouTube API? We don't need the YouTube API here yet. Okay. All right, so we've got our server running. Let's go to localhost 3000. And actually we want to slash YouTube sessions / new. No YouTube sessions / new. What did I call it? YouTube sessions. All right, so now we're going to choose an account. Choose your brand or whatever. In case we're going to pick a brand. And then it says Google hasn't verified this app. It's because we haven't actually like gone through the whole verification process. That's okay. You can click continue. It tells you what video automations is asking for, which permissions it's asking for, and then you can say allow. And now this should, okay, allow again. This should redirect us back to our Rails app and null violation, no session token. Okay, cool. We're so close, holy smokes. All right, so we'll go to our YouTube sessions model. Before validation on create, do self.session token or equals secure random.hex. Let's see if we have secure random. I think it might just be there. All right, let's see. Refresh. Okay, so we got to go through the flow again because we already like used that grant or whatever. All right, connect. Oh, we're back. Okay, so let's see if that worked. It looks like stuff got inserted into the database. This is fantastic. I love it. Okay, very cool. So we are now connected and we have some credentials. So what I want to do now is say Rails console. And we should be able to use these credentials to make a request. So the way that we can make a request is we have to follow this pattern here. So client options, we're going to be able to pull out of the database, which we just created. And then we need to create a new auth client. Then we need to create a YouTube service. And then we can list the channels on the YouTube service with that auth client. So these are kind of the 4 steps. So let's start with client options. Actually, I wonder if we can just like use our YouTube session.last.credentials and plop those directly into here. Oh gosh, we have to require this thing again. Google API client secrets, maybe. Couldn't convert it to a string, so is it JSON.parse? Couldn't convert it to a hash. Okay, so let's just take a look at the credentials here. All right, and to JSON. Let's see. Could not convert hash into string. Is this right? Client options JSON.parse. Okay. So, should this be client secrets that load? I wonder. JSON.parse, that converts them into a hash and stores them in client options, and then it's passing Signet Oauth Client 2. Okay, so let's go take a look at how this is actually implemented. And here, I think this is the Oauth Client 2. And we should be able to initialize with options as a hash. So why is that failing? So we got our creds, and our creds have an authorization URI, update bang. So update bang. Options. You know what? It looks like these need to be maybe symbols or something, because it's like accessing them as if they were symbols. So maybe this needs to be like to JSON, and then let's see, JSON.parse, and then symbolize keys true, or symbolize names true. Okay, and let's see if that works. So creds. Nope, cannot convert hash into string. So I think we need to like dig into this. So all right, how do we want to do this? Wait, deep hash normalize. What is this? Where does that come from? Okay, so that should symbolize everything. All right, so yeah, we're gonna need to step through this. So let's see. Let's open the gem file and add bybug. Pry rails and gem bybug, so that we can have a debugger to walk through this. All right, and let's just run rails c require bybug, and then we want our, nope. So our creds is going to be YouTube session.last.credentials, and then we want to call, what is it again? Signet Oauth2 Client.new creds. Okay, require the Google API client secrets again, and then we pass in creds. Can't convert hash to string. Undefined method each for string. Okay, so in deep hash normalize on 1193 over here, something is failing on 1193. Oh, that's not a thing. Okay, so how do we, okay, so all right, so I don't know if that's actually going to work. All right, let's see if we can just like use seeds.db or something like that, or one of these files here to try to test this a little bit. So creds is equal to YouTube session.first.credentials, and then we want to do this thing, and then we want to require Google API, and we also want to require bybug, and we'll say we'll drop in bybug there, and if we say rake db seed, this will run that seed file, and it will give us a context, so that if we go like this, we should see creds, maybe, nope. What's our exception? Undefined method each for, why is it failing that fast? Okay. There's a weird thing where like, if you're looking at the last statement of the method with bybug, it like exits faster than that. So why isn't it letting me jump to the next statement? I don't know. Let's just add another bybug here. I wonder if this is something about bybug. Let's see, creds. Okay, so we got some creds, and we want to say signet Oauth2 Client.new creds to JSON. Okay. This should be exactly what's happening in this code, in the example code. I don't know why this isn't working okay. So this should just be creds, I think. So we want to step into this method here. To the initialize method so we can see what's going on. All right, so we've got all these things. None of those matter. Okay, so I'm using n to go next, and now it's about to call the update bang method with options. So I can look at options by just typing options. And then I want to say step again, because I want to step into the update method and see if it's crashing just during deep normalize. And it looks like that was okay. So these are all fine. Let's see. Okay, so it looks like when we got to redirect URI, this is where it might be bailing out. Yeah, I think we're coming back up to exit here. So redirect URI might be missing from the actual thing. So Rails C, let's see. YouTube session.last.creds credentials. And is there a redirect URI in here? But the authorization URI dot sort, and there is a redirect URI. And that looks right-ish. But maybe it needs to be stored as like as a string or something. Or maybe it's expecting it as a string and we're saving it as the JSON blob for the object, for that object type. So let's take a look at what was happening over in this flow again one more time. So when it's storing it into this session, so it is calling .toJSON on that. I wonder if this toJSON call is doing something that is a little different than what we're doing when we're calling, when we're just dropping in the auth client like this. Let's see what happens here. So if we restart this and then come back over here, refresh, YouTube sessions, we're redirected. We go through the flow all over again because now we want, or we're going to get a new YouTube session. I think we should. We'll see YouTube session.last. Oh gosh, the credentials are, yeah, okay, whatever. But if we look at the redirect URI, it is stored not as a hash, but as a string. So I think that might be what we want. Maybe not. Let's see. Well, Rails C, let's go to our seed file again. Let's use the new thing that we just did, and we'll say JSON parse. rake db seed. I think what we want to do is we want to convert to JSON, and then we want to convert back into an object that we can store as JSON that's the same format that's expected here. So let's see. Okay, cool. So that totally worked. All right, so let's do that. So let's go to our YouTube sessions controller. This needs to be .toJSON, but then we'll say like json.parse. So we're like serializing and then deserializing so that that one object, which I think is of type like authorized URL or like a addressable URI, it's being stored as a hash with all the different properties rather than being stored as a string. So by calling toJSON on the Auth client, I'm expecting that they probably re-implemented toJSON to like make sure that everything gets JSONified. Let's actually check it out. So like in here, toJSON, yeah, see, look at this. They've got their own custom toJSON method, which was messing around with a couple of these URIs. See, look at this. This is it right here, redirect URI.toS. So this is a little frustrating, but whatever. Like we've got it figured out. So it's like we just need to convert it to JSON or like serialize to JSON and then serialize back out into a hash, store that as JSON, and then I think we can work with it a little better. So let's see if that works. So we want to say YouTube sessions again, and we'll go through the flow, going through the flow. And okay, so we've got one more YouTube session now. Let's just jump right into Rails console and require this client secrets thing. And then let's do, sorry, I'm jumping around a ton here. Okay, so let's try to create the Auth client now. And we're going to use YouTube session.last.credentials. Nice. Okay, so it's not crashing and burning. And now we should be able to say YouTube, create a new YouTube service. So this is where we probably need this YouTube thing. Nice. All right, now we want to pass in this, or create a channel. No, part. Part. What is the part? Part was defined where? Part was not defined anywhere. What is this variable? Oh, gosh. Okay. List channels. I'm guessing this is supposed to be... All right, so I think the code snippet is bad. That's fine. Let's go look and see if we can figure it out based on the actual library. GitHub. Where's GitHub? Oh gosh. Here we go. Okay, let's actually just look at the API docs. So we're trying to do, what is this trying to do? List channel. Actually, let's just say like youtube.methods.sort. We're going to put youtube.methods.sort. This will show you like all the methods that are available. I like to do -class.new.methods. This will just like strip out all the normal class or like all the normal methods from any instance of a class. And so here we see like all the actual stuff that matters. So let's do list videos. So youtube.list videos and see what happens. Okay, expected an argument. So if we say list here and did they give us examples in Ruby? Does not look like it. By video ID, by, okay, my most liked videos. What is part? Okay, so part is a string. Let's see. The part parameter specifies a comma separated list of one or more video resource properties. So the following list contains the part names that you want. So let's just say ID. Let's see if we can say that. Hey, permission denied. Okay, so then we probably also need to specify the authorization. And based on this, I think maybe we want something like this. But again, the code snippet was wrong, so I don't know how far this will go. Missing required parameter. Okay. 400. Wow, that message is so hard to read. Okay, Google. Okay, expected one of my rated chart ID param or ID. So no filter selected. So filter must be a required thing. Yeah, so specify exactly one of the following parameters: ID, my rating, or chart. Is this actually what we want? I thought we'd be able to list them just by like maybe channel ID or something. Let's see. So yeah, get the videos by, okay. Maybe this isn't what we want. Let's see, channels, list my channel. Okay, so going back to YouTube what is it? List channel. And the first thing is a part, and let's just say ID. And the second thing is options. Undefined method list channel. I thought that was a thing. Let's see. List channels. List channels. Okay. Expected one of these. No filter selected. Is this where we have to say mine? Oops. Invalid value mine. Yeah, okay, so how does this stuff work? Execute. Let's just see, show the code. Show me it in Ruby, please. There is no Ruby. Let's take a look at Python. Oh gosh, channels.list, it's completely different. All right, that's pretty cool. Wow, this is tough. Okay, I think we're close. We're super close. We can totally get this. What the heck? How do you, all right, maybe we need to look into the YouTube v3. What is, yeah, so what was the class again that we newed up for the instance of YouTube? Let's go try to find this thing again on Google, on GitHub, sorry. Site, github.com. Here, let's see. So this person trying to create a new broadcast, and part is snippet, so they insert, okay, that's different. Create a new service. Okay, that's not it. All right, so whatever, it's somewhere in here, right? And the class we want is a YouTube service. So you can type T, you can just type a T anywhere on GitHub and you can start typing and it'll fuzzy find the objects or the file paths for you. Super handy. All right, so we've got this initialize thing. We've got, let's see, videos. List videos. It takes a part, a chart, the ID, locale. Okay. Fields, quota user options, my rating. All right, so list channels, part, category ID, mine. Yeah, maybe mine is supposed to be true. Let's see. In the doc strings here, yeah, it's okay. So it's a Boolean. So I passed the string mine, but this is probably supposed to be just true. Hey, we got something back. Epic, very epic, super cool. All right, so this proves that the authentication is officially working. So what did we do again? We went to the gem file, We added this Google API client. Then we went through this whole process of setting up the YouTube sessions controller, which has several methods. It has to require this weird thing at the top, has a new route, which is using the auth client that we're going to create down here and redirecting to that authorization URL. That brings you to Google, where you walk through the flow to authenticate and give permission to access your account. And then once you've given permission, you're redirected back to this callback route where we're extracting the authorization code from the URI, fetching the access token. Then we can store the auth client that we have the access token for in a new object in the database. And we had to do this funky dance where we convert the auth client to JSON and then parse the JSON so that we can use that effectively with the YouTube v3 client. And then again, recall that we did this funky dance here with the Google API client secrets, because we're not loading from client secrets.json. Instead, we're just passing in the hash and pulling out our credentials out of the encrypted credentials that Rails provides. We're converting the client secrets into an auth client. We're updating it with a bunch of stuff so that we can access it offline and do incremental auth. And then we went over to the routes and we added a couple new routes for getting YouTube sessions. I think I might change this to just be like the normal conventional resources, or like resource YouTube session. So you just go to YouTube session and then the callback can just be like /edit or something. This is kind of awkward, but was required so that we could set up the redirect URI. We also went through the whole flow in the dashboard to set up our OAuth client. So thanks for following along and sticking with me. I hope that was useful. In the next session, what we'll do is we will fetch all of our YouTube videos and then create those in the database and store them in the database. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.